right. Well, we might as well get right into it, folks. For all you Danger Rick aficionados, potential Cream Pie Sunday listeners, today we are talking about my experience 2023 doing a weekly podcast, majority of the year doing a weekly video podcast. And we're just going to talk through it. Spoiler alert, the Cream Pie Sunday podcast lived from January 1st to December 31st, 2023. It is dead. Might get revived. We'll see. Who knows? It depends if the money's right. But beyond that, just kind of covering my experience making this podcast with my buddy Josh. So without further ado, that sounds weird to say. I think that's like an old person thing to say. We'll jump right into it. I'm going to kind of answer some of my own questions and just kind of walk you guys through the process of how I did this, why I did this, the time that it took, the effort that it took, the birthdays, parties that I missed, the births that I missed, the weddings that I missed, honeymoons that I missed, all that stuff. So let's get right into it. All right, so getting started, this all takes place in December of 2022. Me and Josh, that I will probably refer to several times as J-Man, the other father of Cream here. We were texting back and forth, just kind of saying it's kind of stupid to have a podcast. And one thing led to another. And then before I know it, we're talking about what are we going to title our podcast. We did a sample version at the end of December just to make sure that we knew how to do it. So then by that January 1st deadline, we could have our first podcast come out on that Sunday. It was kind of shoot from the hip. Didn't really know what we were doing. And by the end, we definitely learned a lot. But that's kind of how we got started out. So part of it, my responsibility was for uploading it to YouTube, kind of building the YouTube channel around it. It was also on all streaming platforms. So it was on Spotify, Apple Music, or Apple Podcast. I don't freaking know. Josh kind of took care of all that. I just kind of made the video portions, and then I uploaded it to YouTube. That was kind of my involvement. But it was available on all streaming platforms, whatever that means in today's world. I think I listened to it once or twice on Spotify just to see if it worked. But for the most part, I kind of lived in the realm of YouTube. So that was kind of my approach to when I was kind of dealing with it. All right, so for the weekly setup, we would meet typically on a Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon. If things were going on, we'd meet on a Monday or a Tuesday, do whatever. I would come down here. I would set up the green screen behind me. I would set up the lights. I bought these lights on Amazon. They aren't the best, but I gaff taped them to some freestanding tripods. Towards the end of my time making the podcast, I got additional lights to kind of help even out the lights. I had a bunch of clamp lamps as well. We would kind of get together. I would use my headphones. We'd each use a microphone with an interface. For the video portion, we would both record ourselves with a webcam. We would use the same program to capture the video and kind of sync it up that way. But beyond that, it's just every Sunday I would talk to my buddy Josh, and 50 minutes was kind of the goal. Sometimes we'd get to 20 minutes and I'd be looking at my list of stuff and I'm like, man, we don't have jack to talk about this week. Other times, we'd go over an hour and it would just kind of flow pretty easily. It all kind of depends, and it was all kind of took time for the prep too. So certain weeks, there'd be some, hot ticket items to discuss, some things that we can really kind of, rant about and kind of discuss. But for the most part, it was just, I drove to work, some guy cut me off. I'm on the motorcycle. I see this on the side of the road. I went and visited my parents, and we're doing shots every touchdown. For Josh, he flew home. He does this, he does that. His encounters with people at work, bartending, doing all this and that. So for 2023, it's really just kind of a time capsule for everything that we kind of experienced. And if it was noteworthy, it made it to the podcast. So that was kind of like how we structured the whole thing. So due to popular belief, we didn't just make up a lot of the content. For most of it was, kind of off the top of the head. But, I had a piece of paper that I would write down notes every week. I've got it in my phone right now, too. That's kind of how I wrote the script for this video. Was, every week if something happened, I would jot it down on my phone. To scroll through all the things I added in the specific note, it takes me like 10 seconds. I would add 10 things every single week and then hopefully touch on all of those throughout the podcast. It was kind of a good way to have material for when there was the dead air moments. And it was easy enough for Josh to be talking about, something, happened at work or whatever. And then I'm like, so what's your take on Beanie Babies? Like, what's up with these? This doesn't make any sense. Are these like little people trapped in dolls? This doesn't make any sense to me. And then we'd talk about that for 20 minutes. So again, it was just kind of using that cheat sheet. And kind of the way I set it up, I would have Josh kind of off camera left. I would have a ring light, so it would kind of illuminate my face. Then I would have my phone sitting in the, the ring light. And then that's how, when I edit it together, it would look like I'm looking at Josh and he's looking at me. And our eyes would just meet for one moment. Just one moment. Okay. So a big part of it was structuring my weekend around the podcast. And we quickly realized that though this was fun to do and it was funny and it was a good use of our time, we came to realize that it takes a lot of time. And I mean, there was weekends where, I'm going to wake up at 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning so I could drive home from my parents' house, take a shower, and then do the podcast at 11. Or, say we're busy over the weekend, Josh is traveling, I'm traveling, whatever it might be. We might have to do it on a Tuesday night after work. Which kind of cuts the deadline because, as you guys might not be aware of, typically we would we would record. I'm going to use the word record because, that captures both the audio and the video. We would record on Sunday. Josh would, take a day or two doing the audio mix, and then he would send it to me. And then at least for the video portion, I would synchronize all the clips, and then I would, make the promos, which I'll kind of get into a little bit of that later. And then upload it for, the following Sunday. So especially when we got into doing promos on a daily basis, making sure that we had enough time to do that stuff would definitely make a lot of sense, at the time. But, it was, even when I got married, I think we did it. I got married on Saturday. Josh flew home on Sunday. We did the podcast Monday night. So every week we were very consistent. We were consistent. We did it every single week. There was even one situation where over the 4th of July, I was gone until like Thursday, and that just wouldn't be enough time to record the podcast, edit the podcast, upload the podcast. So we would actually double up. So we would do one, Sunday morning, then have, lunch, do whatever, come back for the afternoon, shoot the second portion, and then kind of have them premiere at different dates, just to kind of keep it straight. So long story short, we would just kind of structure our weekends around the podcast. It took a priority over other things. I'm a newly married man, and, I could have probably paid some more time and attention to my partner, but the podcast took priority, and that's just the way it works. So hopefully whoever's watching this doesn't take that the wrong way. I just wanted to make this project the best that I could, and that was kind of the approach. So sometimes we would do the podcast at, say, 11 a.m. on Sunday morning. Josh would go ahead and do the audio mix, and then he would have it uploaded to the Google Drive, which is how we kind of navigated all the file sharing and all that kind of stuff. Say you'd have it done by 2 or 3, whatever it might be. And if I was on it, if there was no football to watch, if there was no chores to do, if there was no laundry to do, anything like that, I would actually go ahead and edit the video kind of that day. So like I was saying, we kind of aim for Sunday would be the start, and then the end would just have to be Saturday night by midnight so we could get that upload date, kind of on track. So with that being said, there were times where we'd do the podcast at 11 in the morning. I would upload everything Sunday night, and then that way I would have 6 days of nothing for the podcast until the following Sunday, and then do it all over again. With that being said, there was also those times where I uploaded at 11:50 p.m. on a Saturday night, whether I had things going on. I took time off from the gym. I gained a lot of weight during this whole process. It kind of gets to the point where I get home and, hey, do you want to do this? No, I really got to do the podcast. So that means I'm not going to the gym. It means I'm not, building my relationship with my wife. I'm not spending time with my dogs. It's me in the couch with headphones and just watching the podcast and editing the podcast. So, so Sunday night, Saturday night, doesn't matter what it is. We met the deadline and we did what we needed to do to get through it. So that's kind of the big accomplishment in my eyes. So I kind of hit on this a little bit, but we would use Google Drive to navigate this. So obviously maybe not obviously. I use the word obviously a lot when I'm giving safety trainings at work, so I'm going to try not to do that. But obviously, we had a joint email account that we would use for all the streaming stuff, for Spotify, for I don't even remember what it's called by this point, but I mean, same thing for YouTube. The YouTube account was through that email. But the big thing for us was the Google Drive. So typically, I'm just going to give an example for the video podcast because they were much more in-depth than, him sending me a 50-minute audio file, me putting a single thumbnail over it, pressing export and pressing upload. That didn't really feed my involvement too much. But especially for the video stuff, we'd do the podcast, and then as soon as we're done, we would both share our audio. Well, I would share my audio to him in the Google Drive, and then he would share his video, and then typically I would do the effects to my video and his video that I downloaded off of Google Drive. I would get it to a point where it wasn't synchronized because I didn't have the final audio mix, and then he would sometimes text me. Most of the time he wouldn't, but he would upload the audio file to the Google Drive. I would download that, and then I would use that to synchronize with the video clips, make sure the intro and the outro look good, cut out any sections that we might not want. And obviously there's obviously again. But again, there would be the, me using my microphone and my interface and him using, the same stuff, doing it all through FL Studio. I don't remember what the video webcam capture thing is, but it's something. It's something that we both use to kind of navigate that. But whole point of this story, this little section, this chapter of the video is Google Drive made this all possible. Even making sure that we were below that 15 gigabyte limit. I would go in there, and if we're at 13 gigs and I'm trying to upload my audio or get his video or whatever it might be, I would go in there and delete stuff and kind of do it this way. So we would get close to going over, but we never did. So we never really had any issues. But especially for people that would like to kind of copy what we did, it's very doable doing a podcast that appears that you're, actually in the same room. We did it all with a green screen. He put a green screen up on his wall. As you can see, I've got the green screen behind me as well. But again, Google Drive made it all possible. Without that, we would have had to look into Dropbox or whatever it might be, something that I'm not as familiar with. So thank you, Google, for Google Drive. That thing kicks ass. All right. So for the gear, I'm using essentially everything I would use for the podcast minus the ring light, which is sitting over here. But I'm not looking screen left or screen right. I'm not looking to my left into a ring light talking to Josh. But I've got two soft lights next to me. I forgot to turn the lamp off for this. That shouldn't matter. I bought 4, whatever the hell these things are. Like little lights, I guess. I bought 4 little lights. You can find that on Amazon. I gaff tape them to some freestanding kind of tripod situations. All I got to do is just pull them up, and then they're kind of stand to height. But I would kind of keep the same formula down here. So, typically I would leave the lights all the same. I would leave them all plugged in. I would just shut them off. All I had to do every Sunday was come down, pull up the green screen, make sure all the lighting stuff worked. And it was pretty much, kind of rinse and repeat for the whole thing. Beyond that, so like I said, I bought the webcam. I had to buy some additional lighting equipment. Getting started, I had an issue with my cord. So I think I had like a 25-foot XLR cable. I don't know what it is. Whatever the audio cable is. I had a 25-footer that I had used for a couple years. But, between putting that away after every single project and wrapping it around my elbow, eventually it kind of shit the bed. So I had to get a new cord. So I got this one. This is a 5-footer. I've got a 10-footer. And then especially, you guys probably see this on camera too, but I've got the interface here. I've got the microphone and the headset all kind of figured out. But yeah, for the most part, I had a majority of what I needed. And yeah, that's pretty much it. You guys can't see this, but even where the monopod or where the webcam is sitting, I've got tape markings on the floor. I've got tape markings for where the green screen should go. I did have one for the chair at some point, just to kind of make sure that I was in the same spot every week. But for the most part, I would just kind of set up the webcam, make sure the framing made sense, and then I would test out the audio, and then I'd wait to FaceTime Josh and then we would just FaceTime each other with the headphones, and from there, we just made gravy. We just got after it. We got it creamy, and it was a good experience. So as far as gear and all that kind of stuff, that kind of covers everything we needed. Like I said, a lot of the stuff I had was, lights and extension cords and whatever I might need, power strips, extension cords, all that kind of stuff. So it was a good time. So like I was kind of saying, Josh would kind of focus on the audio portion of the podcast, whereas I would do the video portion. So, the intro song, the special songs for the 4th of July or Thanksgiving, Halloween, Christmas, any of the specials, he put together, I think we had a news segment for a little bit. He would kind of put all that stuff together. So like the audio wise, he was kind of the guru. I came up with the logo. He came up with the thumbnail. And then obviously I would put together the video podcast, using Adobe Premiere and just kind of editing it that way, as well as doing the promos, which we kind of picked up on towards the end of doing just the audio versions. So episodes 1 through 19 are audio only. And then towards the end of those, I started doing like 1 or 3 kind of promo clips a week. And that was just kind of like an audio bar with a picture of the thumbnail. It was kind of stupid, but especially when the video kind of picked up, it kind of made more sense to do the promos that way. And as I'll kind of describe a little bit later, that was how we got a majority of our views and our kind of our traffic. But again, I'll kind of save that for later. Yeah, so like I was saying, I had early issues with my cord. The microphone worked. So just kind of a post Cream Pie Sundae story. This microphone, this is the 3rd project that I've used it for. My other microphone was identical. It was a Audio Technica something, whatever it is. I used that for almost 4 full years. I used it for the podcast. Okay, now I remember. So the original time I was going to do this was about 2 weeks ago. It's getting towards the end of January now, 2024, but I was getting everything set up. I had the green screen set up. I had this, all the lights. I had the audio kind of figured out. I was grabbing this microphone from the mic stand, and I dropped it, and I plugged it in, and it was choppy, and I lost my mind, and I had to buy a new microphone. So that's kind of the little tidbit for you guys. This is the kind of a virgin microphone. And like I said, it's identical to what I had to buy before. I think originally it was like $280, and this one was $150. So that's just the benefits of old technology. But I mean, it didn't fail me. I mean, I do it for audio recording. I do it for songs and raps and all that crap. And obviously for podcasts and, videos like this where I just need to capture just regular voice, levels and all that. So yeah, so I had before, I think the beginning of the video podcast, I think the first one I had a kind of like a windscreen kind of filter mic, or filter for the mic, which kind of looked like shit on video. I ended up getting this sexy little cover here to kind of be able to hold the microphone and kind of have more of a conversation instead of being stuck like this with the microphone out here and I'm looking this way. So it just kind of felt weird. But yeah, so it was just an additional thing that I bought. I think it was just like $12 or something. It wasn't even expensive, but it just kind of added to the podcast that I was able to move around and kind of take advantage of that. So I don't really know where I can sneak this in, but it's something worth mentioning. Josh did this thing called the no context episodes. So I don't think it made it up to episode 20. So the way he kind of described it to me is it would take him like an hour or two to edit the podcast, do all the levels, do the effects, do whatever it needs to do. And then it would take him like another 3 or 4 hours. And that might be exaggerating. I don't know. I never watched him do it. But he would, out of a 50-minute podcast, he would whittle it down to 2 or 3 minutes of the funniest stuff, with background music and, funny pacing and funny conversations and kind of drop the microphone moments. And it was really cool and really funny. And I think that was kind of the stuff that shined at the beginning. And I told him, I'm like, dude, this is the stuff that makes us separate from, all the other podcasts because you put the effort into making this and it looks really cool. Well, it sounds really cool. But for as little traffic as the episodes got, the no context got it even less, which was kind of a shame because I would have loved to have him do that all the way through the life cycle of Cream Pie Sundae. It just didn't, feasibly make sense to do that and spend the amount of time for 4 views, for 5 hours of additional work, whatever it was. So that kind of sucked. But yeah, so especially, I'm going to put the link to the podcast in the description. But yeah, definitely some of those early no context episodes were pretty funny, pretty good. So getting into the groove, episodes 1 through 19, like I was saying, was just audio. We kind of got into a groove, after 5 or 6 episodes, and I had working equipment and make sure everything kind of made sense. The video, the first one was episode 20. So I would say by episode 30, we were really in the groove, really kind of hitting stride. It got to the point where, as soon as we're done with the podcast, he's uploading his video. I'm uploading my audio. I'm doing the video, without the final audio version. He's doing the mixing, the mastering for the audio. He puts that back into the drive. I synchronize everything. I do the full export after the editing, which obviously takes some time. And then I would make the promos. So I would make 7 promos. So there was an upload every single day. So 8 videos a week. Yeah, it was a lot. But yeah, by episode 30, we were really hitting our stride. Unfortunately, we kind of fizzled out by like episode 50. But, that's 20 good episodes right there, I mean, even some of the early audio-only podcasts, there's some gold moments in there. There's some funny stuff, some, I'm sure, revealing personal things or whatever it might be. But, yeah, for the most part, it was... Yeah, it was a good experience, I would say so. I kind of lost my train of thought, so I thought that's a good way to end my sentence. Okay, so the YouTube Shorts. It's kind of silly that you can spend so much time making a 50-minute video podcast just for it to get 7 views, whereas I could spend 10 minutes making a single YouTube short. Some of the YouTube Shorts, well, all the YouTube Shorts, I would put subtitles to as well, so it kind of just added to the production quality. At the end of the shorts, there would be like a little subscribe to Cream Pie Sundae. There's a nuke going off, there's a fart, there's a kiss, there's all sorts of weird sound effects and shit. But yeah, the YouTube Shorts, I don't even know if it's an exaggeration, has 99% of our viewership. I'll kind of touch on this later on, but I think we petered out at about 40,000 views. And then most of the podcast, or most of the uploads, we'd get about 1,000 views a week off the shorts. If it was a really good podcast, we get like 30 views. So if you have a single short get 700 views and you have the full podcast get 30, most wouldn't even get to 30. I don't even think most of them are to that level now. So definitely I said this earlier, but the YouTube Shorts definitely drove the traffic for the channel. And I mean, it was fun too, because, it's the shorts, are in that vertical orientation, so it's easy to share to Instagram and Facebook. And I mean, I think we had a TikTok at one point. I think Josh was navigating that. But I mean, we tried to do too much with too little, and I think that was kind of part of why it failed. But for the most part, it was good learning experience for sure. All right, so for the first video podcast, so I didn't do the color correction very well. We came out like pinkish purplish, and I kind of said like, oh no, it looks cool because it makes us look different, and like we're just way too big in the frame, and it just didn't make any sense. The background was black with the logo just kind of raining. That was just like an hour-long export process in Premiere, just having the graphic fall down. I don't know. I mean, even some of the specials for like 4th of July. So we had the 4 specials. So it was the 4th of July, the Halloween, the Thanksgiving, and the Christmas. And then we had like a little bit extra from like my wedding or whatever it was. But, some of those backgrounds would be changed. Some of the YouTube Shorts would be different. So for a majority of the YouTube Shorts, it was kind of like pink and blue and white were kind of some of the sweet colors. But for the Halloween, I did green and I did orange and I did black. 4th of July, I think I did red, white, and blue. For Thanksgiving, I think I did like a brown and a yellow and a yellow. I don't know. I don't remember. It was a while ago now, but it doesn't really matter. But yeah, some of those backgrounds I would kind of change. And then I want to say it was episode 30. I might be lying. But after a little while, we got away from the falling logo background because I thought that was looked kind of shoddy. But I mean me, I made the Cream Mountain kind of visual. So it was kind of like the ice cream sundae in the middle, and then it had the clouds going by. So it's kind of like you're atop Cream Mountain. So it was kind of cool. So and I thought that looked funnier and like a little bit better anyways. It looked like we were kind of like some Greek gods sitting up on Mount Olympus. It was just two cream daddies sitting atop Cream Mountain. Beyond that, I mean, I had the green screen. I bought the green screen for the podcast now to think about it. This has made way more sense than opening up this giant, I don't know how big it is. It might be 20 by 12. It's a huge giant green felt sheet that I would clamp to the beams in my ceiling in my basement. And before I did the podcast once for the video, I bought this thing and I wanted this to work because I wanted easy, setup, easy tear down. That's why I bought the lights the way I did and I taped them up the way I did because, I mean, it's really easy just to flick these things on, kind of reorient them and make sure that they're working. So that was kind of the plan the whole time. Beyond that, I also got a blue screen that I used towards the end of the podcast so I could wear like my green, my Milwaukee Bucks sweatshirt or my Christmas sweater. And then as well as it just being a blue screen, I wanted a blue screen anyway. So I didn't buy it specifically for the podcast. It definitely fed into the reasoning that I bought it in the first place. But so any additional things that I bought, so I would buy props and costumes. So for 4th of July, I think I wore just a red, white, and blue American shirt or something. I don't really remember what it was. But especially for Halloween, I had horns and I used face paint that I had. So I don't think I bought anything for that. Thanksgiving, I bought a turkey suit, which I can see right now sitting over there on the table that I probably have not touched since the week that we did that podcast. And then as far as Christmas, I had a Christmas sweater. That was pretty easy, but any props, any setup, any equipment, any additional lights, it was every couple of weeks I was buying something new just to see if I could use it, for the podcast. Even the ring light that's sitting over here looking at me. I was at Walmart and just walking around and I saw it for like $20 and it's like, man, I bet that would add to the podcast. And it did, because it kind of gave me a stand to hold, put Josh right here. And then that way it looks like I'm talking to him. And then it kind of illuminates my face coming off that too. So, the more light, the better. But yeah. So typically the schedule would work like this. So if we were to pod at 11 a.m. on a Sunday, I would come down here around 10:30, set up everything, make sure the audio works, kind of make sure everything was ready to go, and then FaceTime Josh. So that's a half hour there, and then we would do the hour-long podcast, typically about 50 minutes, and then we would talk for 5-10 minutes after the podcast, upload everything, and then like I was saying, Josh would do an hour or two of audio mixing. It would take me, the first time I did the video podcast, I think it took me 15 hours that week just to get it into a rhythm of like, all right, this is how it's going to look. Because, at the start, I didn't really know how it was going to go. It was more or less just kind of accumulate the files and find a way to piece it together so that it's watchable. And, that episode 20 was a little rough. But it was all a learning experience. So even by this point, setting up the lights and holding the microphone and talking into the webcam and watching myself on FL Studio, I'm comfortable to the point now that I know how to do this. I did 53 podcasts where I had to record audio. I did 33 podcasts where I had to do the video as well. So, this is something I'm comfortable with by this point. So just to keep going down that, so like I said, the first week was, 15 hours, which sounds like an exaggeration, but that's literally me getting home, I think at 5:30, not going to the gym, editing until 9:30, taking a shower, going to bed, doing that Monday through Friday until it was done. And I think that was probably one of the podcasts where I probably uploaded it on a Saturday afternoon because I knew how I wanted it to look, but especially, you video editors out there, you understand this, but starting a big project like this and where there is no template and there is no rhyme or reason that you're doing certain things, you want it to look good. You want it to look like, wow, this is impressive, but you don't want it to look like, wow, they put a lot of time into this. By the end, I think I got it down to like 4 or 5 hours a week. I would do the video podcast, and it was really, doing the effects, that would take a half hour, synchronizing the video with the audio, and a watch through. Literally sit there, tighten up the intro and the outro, and then just do a watch through of the podcast. That would take at least an hour. As I'm going along, I'm leaving marks on the timeline, so that way I can go back and say, oh, this is a good segment for a YouTube short, or this is good for a thumbnail, or whatever it might be. So as I'm going along, it's not like I'm just sitting there not paying attention. I'm like actively pressing M to leave a mark on the timeline so that I can go back and easily, reference those things. And then just to wrap up this thought, so 4 or 5 hours, an hour recording the podcast, half hour setting up, 5 minutes tearing down. So I think probably the last couple weeks, maybe 6 hours a week. So it definitely kind of shifted a little bit, because as Josh was starting out and he was doing the no context and he was doing all the audio mixing, giving me the audio files just for me to put it to a majority of my involvement was put the thumbnail there over the audio, press export, which would take an hour, and then upload it and then do the description, which Josh would do typically all the descriptions as well. So he would upload a text file to the Google Drive, and I would literally just copy and paste it. And then I would steal stuff from the description, put it in for the tags, and then all the YouTube shorts, I would just kind of share those same tags so that they all kind of get the same traffic. So the good thing about YouTube is that you can upload and schedule these things. So say, on a typical week, we do the podcast on a Sunday. He gets the audio up by Monday or Tuesday. I get the video done by Thursday. Typically Thursday was kind of my sweet spot. So I would go in, Thursday after, exporting everything. So that would be the 7 promos, the long form, 52-minute podcast, whatever it might be. And then I could say, all right, so say the Sunday was on a first. I would say, all right, so the podcast is going to come out on the first, and the first promo is going to come on the first, and they're going to premiere at 8 a.m. So then that way when I wake up, I can share it to Instagram. Here's the link to this week's podcast. Here's the promo to get extra traffic. And then the rest of them, would just kind of premiere, Monday at 8 a.m., Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all the way through the week. And ideally, that would get traffic from the promos or the YouTube shorts to the podcast. Didn't work out like that. We might have got a majority of our subscribers on there or whatever. I think we capped out at like 69. We capped out at like 69 subscribers or whatever it was. But the YouTube shorts redirecting traffic to the podcast did not work out as I was hoping, but it's just the nature of the beast. Yeah, so I brought this up a couple times, but the specials for the 4th of July, Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas, those were some of my favorite episodes because I was able to steal basically live footage from YouTube and then flip it and then change the color correction on it and then zoom it in a little bit and then overlay some other BS or whatever we needed to do. But some of those were some of the fun ones to do because, you get into the rhythm of, especially when I was editing, I haven't really touched on this yet. So it's like, all right, last week's podcast is in an editing file. So this week, all I would do is I would copy that file, change the date. I would delete last week's out of the timeline, put the new stuff in there. It was really rinse and repeat the whole time. So it was really just, it's not like every single week I'm creating from scratch. It was really like a template that I would carry over every single week. So especially some of those promos were cool because I would start from scratch. I would completely delete it, put in the intro song that Josh made for the 4th of July, put in the American flag flying with a bald eagle, kind of playing in the background. And then we show up and we're all America'd out. And it just looks kind of funny. So it's a comedy podcast, obviously. But it was just an example of, being able to kind of step outside of the box of just, for a majority of them, 33 of the podcasts were video. The first 10 had the following logo. The four, like I said, the four specials all had special kind of graphics to them. But all the other ones were really, Cream Mountain. It was just us kind of sitting up there. We would have guests from, every so often. I'll touch on that in a little bit. But yeah, it was just kind of rinse, repeat. It was not too bad. It will be nice because the podcast is dead now to go ahead and just delete the files, because I think the editing files take up 200 gigabytes on my computer. And I have a laptop that I use, and it definitely gets bogged down because so much of it is just stuff that I don't use anymore. So this is kind of my excuse to wrap up the Cream Pie Sunday podcast and wipe it off the face of the earth, save it to a hard drive, and forget about it. So a couple of the additional special episodes, I would say, would be the Bachelor Cream Pod. I think that was what it was called. It was me at my bachelor party with a GoPro, us sitting at the Airbnb, and just, Josh is pretty hammered. We were all drinking. It was fine, whatever. But just kind of like grabbing the guys from my bachelor party and having them sit down and, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? You sure about that? And it was just like, I don't know. I don't think it added anything to it. It was just like a different experience, but it was kind of funny. And then the wedding pie Sundae, I think that was the name of one of them. That podcast was like 40 minutes. And then the last 20 minutes was actually the night of my wedding. And this is really cool. It rained the day of my wedding. It was like downpouring. And we had this giant cottage. It wasn't really a cottage, but it was like the wedding venue that we got to stay at and then go downstairs and get married. It was pretty cool. But yeah, the last 20 minutes of the wedding podcast is me, Josh, and my younger brother Owen. And we were just sitting out there, smoking stogies and drinking beers and talking shit. It was kind of funny, but it's cool too, because like I keep saying, this is all kind of a time capsule. So, I will be able to go back and listen to those conversations, and hopefully other people don't. By this point, I don't really care, if the podcast blows up or whatever it might be. But yeah, it's just it's cool to have that captured, and it's just neat to do. So for the Christmas podcast, we had gifts. I was gonna reach up and grab these, but I probably won't. Josh gave me like these plushy ice cream sundaes. He gave me 2 of them to give to my dogs, which selfishly I'm keeping because my dogs would destroy it within 30 seconds. I bought him a neon sign from the Ukraine that said CPS, and it was like an ice cream dish, and it was pretty cool. It was cool just to it took him like 20 minutes to open the freaking thing because the guy is just slow, whatever. I'm just kidding, Josh. But it was just, it was cool because he gave me that, and he gave me a gift card for like an ice cream spot over by my house, a place that I actually go with my dog, so I'm familiar with it. But yeah, I gave him the Cream Pie Sundae logo neon sign, which I'll kind of just say this too. That cost a little bit of money, and we obviously had the conversation of we should get gifts for each other that we can open up on air. And I kind of blew out on this sign, and I thought it could be like in the background of the video or whatever it might be. It's a gift for Josh, so I didn't really care. So I kind of go all out on this gift, and I'm getting extra accessories, and I'm getting this and that, and it's some money. And Josh hits me up and he goes, "Yo, I don't think we should do the podcast anymore." Okay. All right, man. I wish you told me that before I dropped $45,000, but that's all right. Whatever, dude. It's all good. It's all good fun. All I really care about is when he's got a house later, years down the road, and I go down to his man cave, and he's got this Cream Pie Sundae sign sitting up on the wall, and I'll say, that makes it all worth it, man. That's pretty dope. So for guests, obviously for the wedding pie Sundae, we had Josh and then my younger brother Owen. For the bachelor party, we had Sam and Andrew, and my brother-in-law was in there for a little bit. Beyond that, we also had James, so we had like Uncle Jimbo. That was a big podcast episode that had a lot of views. And then we had one of Josh's buddies, Chris, be on the podcast as well. Couldn't figure out the video for that. That was kind of a pain in the ass, but is what it is. The reoccurring guest, we had Novo Heights, our buddy Matt Buck. That was cool, which we could just kind of talk to him about, his album that was coming out, or his EP, or just, life in general. And, me, Josh, and Matt, we know each other from high school. We've known each other for a long time. I talk to Matt and Josh all the time, so it's cool that we can kind of come together on something like that. This is going to be kind of a hodgepodge of interview, but whatever it is. Also, during the Cream Pie Sunday bachelor party, we had Dave, one of our listeners, make Cream Pie Sunday shirts for us. So that was kind of funny. I think it said Cream Pie Sundays, which is fine because it's Cream Pie Sunday, but it was funny. I mean, the design was kind of like off to one side and kind of off kilter a little bit, so kind of added to it, but whatever. It was cool. So now this part of it, that probably isn't the most sexy thing to talk about, but why did we stop doing the podcast? It really went from fun and kind of figuring it out and kind of making it up every week, and it was exciting to edit this stuff, because it's like me and one of my best friends are able to make this stuff every week, and I'm making these promos and I'm putting the subtitles and I'm using funny sound effects for the swears, because the first 5 minutes we can't use any swears because we don't want to screw up the YouTube algorithm and all this and that. And it got to the point where it was just work. It was just a part-time job that I didn't get paid for, which I mean really is kind of a good way to describe your hobbies in general. But we kind of lost the flame, and it wasn't as fun as it was, and it became work. And unfortunately, that's just kind of the way it worked. It's just even you don't know if we had 1 million views over 40,000, if that would have kept us going. It probably would have. I think part of the goal was for us to make money off the podcast on YouTube or off streaming or whatever it was. And that was just so far away from being attainable that after a year we just lost the desire to do it, which is fine. Things are meant to, be born and die in front of you, but it's it's kind of a shame that it hit the wall the way it did, but it's just the way it works. It's the way the cream hits the road. All right, so some of these statistics I'm going to look down so I don't screw them up. So we had 53 episodes. We had 304 videos on YouTube. That's combining, the no context and the promos and obviously the podcasts themselves. We had 69 subscribers. I don't know if we lost or gained any since I put this together, but I don't really care. 40,000 views. And like I said, probably 99% of those are YouTube shorts, which is fine. Whatever, a view's a view. But, especially for the YouTube, partnership program, we would have needed a lot more short traffic just to keep us afloat. And, we just didn't get that. So we had roughly 2,800 minutes of the podcast. So 48 hours of us making dick and fart jokes every Sunday. So it was a good experience doing that. So we said what we said. We said what we wanted to do. Especially during the beginning of the podcast. I kind of always build this up in my mind of, is my boss going to watch this? Am I going to lose my job? Is my wife going to hear this and say whatever she's going to say about whatever? And it kind of gets to the point where it's like, we've said so much and we've done so much, it doesn't really matter. If somebody's going to filter through 48 hours of audio for me to get fired, I don't fucking care, dude. You got better things to do. Why are you looking through my shit to look for me to say something stupid about trans people or whatever the fuck I said? It doesn't matter. And I say trans because we'd bring up the trans community on a weekly basis. So I'm sure I said at least one offensive thing about that, but whatever, dude. It's a comedy podcast. Get over yourself. And one of the thing that Josh, he put this in a summary, but we said enough to get canceled 10 times over, which I don't know if that's true, but it's probably true. Yeah, but for the most part, it kept me busy when I didn't want to be busy. It was really, I don't want to get into the whole fun to work ratio, conversation again, but it was really, it was the biggest project I ever did to date. 48 hours of podcasting plus the over 200 YouTube shorts that I put together with I learned how to do, use the green screens to an effect that it would be, visually appealing. And I learned how to do subtitles for the YouTube shorts. I learned how to kind of orient my workflow so that I didn't have to recreate the wheel every single week, that I could just copy and paste and swap out files and do this and that. And kind of just getting into a groove with Josh. So, he would upload the text file to the Google Drive and I would save it, and then I would copy and paste it into the YouTube descriptions and this and that. And it took a lot. There was a lot of elements to it. And I think we got into a really good rhythm towards the end. But for the most part, it was just an experiment. That it just comes down to that. It was a lot of work. I put in maybe not hundreds of hours, I doubt dozens of hours. I'm going to say I put in hundreds of hours, at least 200 hours into this podcast last year. Would I do it again? Probably not. But if I had a time machine to go back and do it again, I probably would, because I don't consider it wasted time. I don't consider it wasted effort or work. I had fun doing it, and it was just an excuse for me to talk to my buddy Josh for every week for an hour, which is cool. That was the takeaway. Starting out, Josh would talk about, it'd be cool like when we monetize and we can, hopefully not have to work our jobs and do this and that and, whatever. But I told him, from the start, the reason you should want to do this is because it's fun to do, and not that, you don't want views on your videos. Obviously you do, but you want it to be, you get enjoyment out of doing it. You want to talk to me on a Sunday morning, if you're at the end of a 4-day bender and you're feeling like dog shit or whatever. And so like I was saying, this is my most consistent project, my biggest project to date. Again, 48 hours of podcast is nothing to shake a stick at. The 304 videos over the full year, that's crazy. That's a lot of me uploading. I definitely uploaded more than 304 times. Just the number of times I would upload it, and then I would go to watch it, and then there would be like one thing spelt wrong in the freaking captions. I'd lose my mind over that shit. I would go back, and then I'd fix it, and then I have to re-export it, and then I have to re-upload it, and then I have to take the old one down, and then it's whatever. But it's just yeah. This is funny that I put this in my list of stuff to talk about, but I never wore the same shirt twice. So out of episode 20 to 53, I wore either a sweatshirt or a jersey or a t-shirt or a hat or a pair of glasses or whatever it is. I did not wear the same thing twice. Obviously pants is a little bit different. I probably wore shorts in a vast majority of these episodes, but yeah, no, I didn't wear the same shirt twice. So I thought that was just like a little funny thing to do, because I got a closet that I can barely move the clothes back and forth on the rack because I've got so many shirts in there. But yeah, just something funny to add in there. So I don't think I really touched on the editing aspect as much, but this was the same editing file that I used the whole time, up until it would crash on me, and then I would have to rename it because I wouldn't save it, and I would have to use an autosave file. So then all of a sudden it would be copy of Cream Pie Sundae, and then that would corrupt. Copy of the creamiest Cream Pie Sundae. Copy of the Creamy Cream Mountain Fun Time Hour. I don't even know. I don't know how many times this file crashed on me, and I would have to rename it something new because I couldn't overtake the old file. But yeah, it was just it got to be a freaking mess by the end. That's why I'm looking forward to deleting the editing file, because it's over 200 gigabytes of probably just autosaves and all this other stuff. Typically I'm kind of a minimalist when it comes to video editing. So I would go through, I would delete all the files that I didn't need. So I delete all the audio files, all the pictures, all that kind of stuff. And then every week I would have the podcast, the shorts, the thumbnails, the text files, and then anything additional. So like if there was a funny thumbnail, or if there was a song that Josh would, make for a special or whatever it might be, I would save that stuff, and then I would compress it, put it all into a hard drive, and then delete it off my computer, because, typically those files would be about 15 gigabytes per week, and span that over, 33, hypothetically, weeks. That's way too much room for my computer, so I've definitely compressed and deleted a lot of files, and that audio editing file, I broke it down by quarter. I broke it down by, every week all the files go into those folders. The thumbnails are all the same, the updates are all the same, the shorts are all the same. It was really just copy and paste for the whole part, which, made my life a lot easier than trying to recreate the wheel every single time I try to do something. Yes, so January 1st to December 31st was the lifespan of Cream Pie Sundae. I'm kind of weird about this kind of stuff, but it kind of brings me closure knowing that it went from the first to the last day of the year, because it just, saying that we went from the first day to the last day of the year is just cool. So even, making sure that the promo doesn't come out in January 1st or January 2nd or whatever it is, it's done. It's tied up. It's all ready to be thrown into the river and forgotten about. All right. So as we reach the end of this, I am a forefather of cream. I will forever be a creamer. My buddy Josh, J-Man, J-Money, Cash Money, will forever be a creamer. He will be my father of cream, the cream daddy of all cream. We will sit atop Cream Mountain for the rest of time, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to walk this cream-tastic path with him. So, yeah. All right. So the future of the podcast. So when Josh kind of reached out to me, we kind of called it. I think it was in November. We talked on the phone and basically said, are you getting anything out of this anymore? And I'm like, dude, I spent so much time doing this. I mean, it got to the point where it's like 3 days bare minimum a week. I'm doing nothing but editing this podcast at home with my 2 dogs and my wife, and she's watching TV, or the dogs are sitting there looking at me like, why don't you come play with me? Yeah, but I mean, we kind of said, well, originally, we could maybe do a podcast every month, or we could like do reunion episodes, or we could do more guests or whatever. And I'm like, dude, just scrap it. It's just, I think it's lived its life. I think it's at its point where it doesn't have to keep going on. So that's fine with me, at least for now. We don't really have any plans for the future of the podcast. But yeah, I mean, for me, that's all right. It's time that I can spend elsewhere. All right. So following up on that, so what will I do with my time? Well, this video is going on my Danger Rick YouTube channel. Again, I'll have all the links to the podcast and all that stuff, but I don't really care about the podcast by this point. But even if I'm those 6 or 7 hours that I would spend on the podcast a week, if I spend half of that putting towards these type of videos or other videos, music videos, gaming videos, the stuff where I have friends come over and help me make stuff, whatever it might be, it frees up my life a lot, and it allows me to not have to structure my weekends around being home for the podcast and not having to set aside time after work and not skipping the gym so I have time to make these edits and all that. So I think it was time for it to die, and I'm sticking to it. Yeah, really, I just got to keep up the effort and maintain my momentum, because if I don't put 7 hours into my craft, then what am I doing with my time? That's kind of my whole takeaway here. So my goal for this YouTube channel is hopefully do a weekly upload, and that should bring me to about 200 videos by the end of the year. So, if anybody's looking at this down the road, you can go look back and say, wow, he hit that, or he didn't even come freaking close, man. But yeah, it's just, I think setting goals is important, especially when, you don't really know what you're doing. Setting little goals, and, the weekly podcast was a goal that we sometimes didn't think was achievable, and we achieved it. At the end of the day, I was just grateful to do something with one of my best friends creatively, something that he got to show off his audio skills. Some of the songs that he made were hilarious. Obviously, doing the audio mixing for the podcast themselves and doing all that was pretty cool. And then me being able to really tighten down my green screen skills and editing skills and doing the subtitles and doing the shorts and really kind of getting into a groove. Those 300 uploads, every single upload I did, I was learning something, or I was doing something a little bit different, or I was asking the question, why does this look like this? How can we prevent that from happening again in the future? It's really just a good experience overall, and I took a lot away from it. And hopefully I'm assuming Josh probably feels the same. Hopefully he doesn't think it was a waste of time. I don't think he does, but I think I got a lot out of it, and I think it was time to pull the plug, and I'm standing by that decision. All right. So now following up with the Let me get the title right here. Beyond the Cream, 1 year of cream pie sundae. So this is a video that Josh put together. It came out on December 31st. It was a 15-minute version of kind of a full summary of the whole podcast. So it's kind of the beginning, screenshots of us texting back and forth from December of 2022. Him creating the thumbnails from the pictures that I sent him and the picture that he took. Some of those early podcasts, no context. Some of the funny audio snippets, some of the video stuff, from episode 20 on. It was really funny, and Josh really killed it. But yeah, so that was kind of a good summary. So Josh, if you're watching this, you did a really killer job, dude. For me being a video guy and for you to put something together like that and not asking me to do that, I appreciate it a lot, and I think you did a superb job. Just to keep it creamy with you, bud. Okay. I'm just taking a moment, trying to add dramatic suspense. I'm not getting emotional, but 2023 will forever be the year of the cream. It's still how I finish our phone conversations. If he's saying bye, I'm saying, all right, man, keep it creamy. It was a trip. It really slowed down my year. There's been years where I've had, so many projects or so many little projects, and without realizing it, weeks and weeks go by and I make no progress on anything. And I feel like a failure. And like I was telling everybody else, even if I didn't upload a single Danger Rick video all last year, which I uploaded, 70 videos or whatever it was, having those 300 videos pop up for the podcast was a big, significant achievement. And, I don't take that lightly. I take it very seriously. I think it was a good learning experience. It was just, it was a trip. It really was a trip. So, all right, folks, my FL says that I've been rambling for about an hour now. So I'm going to tie this up the only way I know how. All right, folks, you heard it here. Stay creamy.